There was a professor who had spent 30 years studying wisdom, not casually, seriously, rigorously, with the full force of an exceptionally intelligent mind applied to the greatest philosophical and spiritual traditions the world had produced. He had read the ancient texts in their original languages. He had studied under teachers who had studied under teachers who had studied under the founders of their traditions. He had written papers that other scholars cited. He had students who quoted him the way serious students quote people they consider to have genuinely arrived somewhere. He was not a vain man in the obvious ways. He was not loud about his learning. He did not name-drop or perform erudition in casual conversation. But he had, in the particular quiet way of very educated people, a deep and largely unexamined conviction that he understood the territory, that the map he had built over 30 years was accurate, complete, perhaps not, but reliable, oriented correctly. And so when he heard about a Zen master living quietly in a small house in the hills outside the city, a man people traveled significant distances to sit with, he was curious. Not hungry, curious. The way you are curious about something you expect to find interesting, but do not expect to find surprising. He went on a Tuesday morning, sat across from the master in a simple room with a low table between them, and began to speak. He spoke about what he had studied, about where the various traditions converged and where they diverged, about the conclusions he had reached after decades of careful thinking, about what he considered the central insights of the wisdom traditions and how he understood them in relation to each other. He was articulate, organized, clearly accustomed to rooms that listened to him with respect. The master listened without interrupting. When the professor paused, the master rose and said he would make tea. He brought a cup and a pot and set them on the table between them. He began to pour. The tea reached the brim. He kept pouring. The tea spilled over the edge of the cup onto the table, a small river of it running toward the professor's sleeve. The professor pushed back from the table. "Stop," he said. "It's full. There's no more room." The master set down the pot. He looked at the professor. "You are like this cup," he said quietly. "You have come here full of your own knowledge and your own conclusions and your own understanding of how things are. There is no room for anything new to enter." He sat down. "How can I show you anything," he said, "if you arrive already full?" The room was very quiet. The professor was not a man who was often rendered speechless. He had debated people far more aggressive and far more directly confrontational than this. He had navigated academic politics and professional rivalries and the subtle cruelties of intellectual competition for 30 years. But this hit somewhere that those things did not, because he could feel it. Not defensively as an accusation to counter, actually feel it. The way you can sometimes feel a true thing land differently from a false one. He sat in the quiet of that simple room and did something he had not done in a long time. He looked at himself honestly. And what he found when he looked honestly was that the master was right. Not about the knowledge was real. 30 years of genuine study does not produce nothing. But the relationship to the knowledge, the quality of his listening, the way new information arrived and was immediately sorted into categories he had already built, the way conversations with people who saw things differently felt less like exchanges and more like territories to be defended. The cup was full. He had stopped being a student. He could not identify exactly when it had happened, but somewhere in the middle of accumulating so much, he'd crossed a line from learning to knowing, from asking to telling, from open to closed. And the tragedy was that from the inside, being full feels like being knowledgeable. The two sensations are nearly identical. You cannot tell the difference while it is happening. He looked at the tea drying on the table. "How do I empty the cup?" he asked. And the master did something the professor did not expect. He smiled. Not a small smile, a genuine one. "You have already begun," the master said. "The moment you asked that question, instead of explaining to me why my demonstration was philosophically imprecise, you made a little room. That is all emptying the cup ever is. Not a dramatic reversal, not throwing away everything you know. Just a little room. created by asking instead of answering, by wondering instead of concluding. The professor went home that evening the same man he had been that morning in terms of what he knew. 30 years of study does not evaporate in an afternoon, but something about how he held it was different. Slightly looser, slightly more willing to be surprised, slightly more honest about the distance between knowledge and understanding, between knowing about something and actually knowing it. He changed one thing about how he taught his classes. He started ending each lecture with a question he genuinely did not know the answer to, not a rhetorical one, not one designed to lead students toward a conclusion he had already reached. A real question, one he sat with them in, one where his not knowing was as present in the room as their not knowing. And his students said, though he did not hear this directly, that those final minutes were the ones they thought about longest, not the information, the honest question, the shared uncertainty, the brief feeling of a cup with room in it. Here is what this story is really about. The Full Cup is not a story about arrogant or ignorant people who think they know everything. Those people are easy to identify and easy to feel superior to. This is a story about intelligent, educated, thoughtful, genuinely well-intentioned people who have learned so much that they have accidentally closed themselves. Knowledge and wisdom are related, but they are not the same. Knowledge is what you have gathered. Wisdom is what happens when you hold your knowledge lightly enough that reality can still reach you. When the map does not replace the territory, when the word does not replace the thing it points to. The moment you are completely certain you understand a person, you have stopped seeing them. The moment you are completely certain you understand a situation, you have stopped reading it accurately. The moment you stop being genuinely curious, you have stopped growing. Even if you continue accumulating, even if the degrees and the credentials and the experience keep adding up. Growth requires room, and room requires the willingness to be occasionally wrong about something you were previously certain of. Here is the question this story leaves you with. Where is your cup full right now? Which relationship have you decided you already completely understand? Which belief have you stopped examining because you settled it years ago? Which area of your life has the cup filled so completely that new information bounces off rather than entering? You don't have to pour the cup out. Just tilt it slightly. Make a little room. That is where the next thing you actually need to learn is waiting.